we're going to finish with the last panel of the day. It's called Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger, Building a Thriving Sync Ecosystem of the Future. We have Emma Lomas, who is the head of licensing for Beggars Group. Fred Schindler, who is the founder and CEO of Too Young. Andrea Lacroix, the licensing and sync at K7. Right. Yeah. And James Armstrong, he's the VP of Creative Marketing at Sony Music Publishing. Okay, so they are going to talk about the revolution of the audiovisual ecosystem right now. That's been pretty manual all this time. Actually, it takes at least 1 month from the beginning when you start searching for the song to when you finally execute it. So they're going to explore how it can adapt to the AI-generated music, the boom of stock music, and how this is going to affect the sync landscape right now. So you can start whenever you want. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, everyone, for joining today. The idea of this panel was primarily gathering with top sync executives that are actually shaping the way we use today commercial music. As we sing, we license. So both Emma, Andrea, and James have quite an influence because of the catalogs they represent. So Emma represents the Beggars catalog that includes Excel, Rough Trade, 4AD, Matador, and Young on the recorded side. Andrea represents the iconic German electronic imprint K7 that actually also distributes, and sync represents hundreds of smaller niche, really qualitative imprints. And James is the VP of Creative at Sony Music Publishing, based in the New York headquarters, which is basically the biggest publisher on earth. To put it simply. Of course, they have really, really high-profile writers such as Beyonce, Queen, Michael Jackson. But they also have joint ventures and lots of upcoming back catalog niche writers and songs. So today's idea was to discuss a bit about the current landscape in synchronization. It's a landscape that, let's face it, is at the moment quite cacophonic. Quite messy. It feels sometimes it is a bit of a jungle out there. When I started music supervision, together more or less at the same time than the ones on this panel, the sync space was quite structured. We had fewer opportunities. Advertisement was like a few campaigns per year. It was TVCs, like big stuff. So clients were looking at recognizable big hits. Films, well, you still went to the theaters to watch cinema at the time. So there was a production that was, a little bit more concentrated. And digital advertisement basically didn't exist. So nowadays we've moved into a space where we are producing around 20,000 feature films per year and growing. There's 10,000 TV series being produced. That's more or less like 80,000 episodes. And each one of those episodes having like 25 songs in it. Mm-hmm. There is millions of small, shorter digital ads, and I'm not even counting creative like influencers or creators creating their own branded or not branded content. There is like last year there was 14,000 video games. So that's a huge amount of content, audiovisual content being produced. Of course, using my estimation is like there's around 3 million potential cues to be serviced. So the first question for the panel today is how are we going to tackle this reality with commercial music licensing when it is traditionally quite manual, fragmented. As you might know, a sync implies securing a license with the publisher or co-publishers if it's a split copyright and the master owner. So those are typically also individual conversations. In a context also when last week, Suno, generative, quite an ethical company, raised at 125 million, so they can generate songs almost instantly. The stock music market is rising and achieved last year a volume of sales of around $1.3 billion. If you imagine that in average they sell their songs or they license their songs for 1,000, imagine how many stock songs we have in our media nowadays already. So the first question is, what's your take on the current landscape? I mean, is it becoming harder to place commercial music? This is the first big question.
Shall I start?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so much busier. The amount of uses that come in have increased massively over the last few years. We're a relatively small team for the size of our catalogue, so it can be quite overwhelming. Having said that, we are lucky with the catalogue we work with. We do still see the sort of big traditional syncs, and so we still have those uses, luckily, the film trailers and the TV ads. But we are also just seem to be working and doing a lot more, especially with the online stuff and the online advertising. And we're probably, yes, we've increased our targets over the last couple of years, but I would say we do so much more work, and the results aren't as impressive as they should be for the amount of time that we spend and the amount of deals that we do.
Yeah, I mean, we could obviously, like, coming from a catalog the size of ours, 4 million plus copyrights is very, I think from our perspective, having comprehensive data, having comprehensive metadata on the audio is very important, and trying to build systems internally that allow us to work more nimble and quicker in order to service our clients' needs, because as media and advertising has kind of taken a different shape, especially over the past 3 to 4 years. I mean, like Fred mentioned, maybe 15 years ago it was like we were servicing 1 year TV commercials, with maybe a volume of like 200-300 a year. Now we're far past the thousands, and it's kind of more from like a 1 year license into, well, TV is going to be one day and it's going to be at the Oscars, and then there's going to be 15 influencers doing a 2-week campaign on TikTok, and there's going to be a 3-month paid term in the UK, the US, and maybe Australia, and it's just evolving into a very granular, fragmented system that is getting, it's very difficult to navigate, especially at the scale where we're arriving at now. And looking forward to the next 5-10 years, I can only see it continuing to increase in volume. So I think, going back to, it's really important to build systems that allow companies, the rights holders, to work as fast as possible in order to meet the demands of producers and ad agencies and brands globally with their high volume digital campaigns these days.
Yeah, I can just join what they covered already everything. I think if we, for the quantity of content that is produced nowadays, if we have the right tools to find the right piece of music on both sides, labels, publishers, and also music supervisors, can definitely help.
Yeah, I mean, if we are just pinging on that, we move to the second pillar of this talk, which is better. I mean, how can we provide better service? I mean, how can we place more commercial music in on the audiovisual landscape? I mean, as a music supervisor and a music lover, for me, it's quite shocking that with a century of recorded music, because we are at that stage. I mean, Sony Publishing alone, it is the biggest one, but one publisher has 4 million songs. 4 million songs, that's a huge amount, and that's one publisher only. Beggars has potentially 35,000 recordings. That's a lot of music, lots of hours of great qualitative curated, human created music. why should we use in our audiovisual content stock music created solely for the purposes of being used in audiovisual? Or if I push it a little bit further, and this is a trend, I was in a panel in Berlin last week, and one of agency music director mentioned that they were using unlicensed generative AI for their internal demos just to speed up also their internal processes. It's not only unethical and illegal, but I mean the music exists. We have 1 century of music available. So how do you think, which are the pillars or the angles like you think we should tackle, I mean, among the music community, the sync and licensing community, to be able to place more of this music? So some hints, I mean, I think discoverability is one angle. I mean, I think there is, lots of music, so tech can help. Another big problem as a supervisor for a client is copyright fragmentation. I mean, the fact that one song, what a client perceives as one song, has multiple stakeholders, and that's also compared to the seamless, or I would not call it seamless, convenient aspect of talk music or generative. So how would you get music buyers hooked to the real music of artist-driven music? Of course, it would be more expensive than other solutions, but what can we do to do better in that space?
I think, yeah, it can be more expensive, of course, but first of all, AI, I don't think it gives the same emotion to a song as a recorded song. So
It will never, I agree with that. But the thing is, I mean, they are choosing those songs just basically because of convenience today. I don't think it's only the pricing tag. If they pay 1,000 euros for a stock song, they could pay 3,000 to an indie artist. They do have those budgets. I mean, any Netflix production goes that route. Why? How can we just get back those cues to your writers, to your artists, to your back catalog, small niche artists? I mean, any Netflix series, just if you wait until the credits, it's already packed with stock music. Packed.
I mean, we have hidden gems. So for our artists, for certain of our artists, it's very relevant. I mean, I think also the more you license out of the same track, of the same niche artist, the better it is. So you can generate some content. But for bigger artists, that's for sure it's going to be an issue.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, Emma, but I mean, I'm not talking about the bigger artists. I mean, I think, the bigger artists and song, they have their sync, profile, and they get requested, and clients also understand that they need to pay higher fees. But, I'm talking about all these other cues, what, we started calling in our supervision licensing space, the long tail of sync. How can we swap those library into more upcoming?
I think we need to, because as a sync team, it's our job to make sure that we have a good relationship with the music supervisors and the clients, and make sure they're kept up to date with our music, which we do. But the sort of people that you're talking about that deal with, that are quite happy to just swap out and use stock music, I guess it's about changing the kind of reputation, or trying to demystify that sync can be very slow and difficult. And at times, yes, it can, because if you've got songs that have got 10 writers and samples, then sure. But I don't think there's anything we can do to fix that problem.
No.
But yeah, it's just generally making sure as a rights holder that you're quick to deal with, and flexible and responsive is kind of, it's kind of what we try to aim to do.
I think it's a it starts with with an education, right? Like you need to be communicating to people who are buying music that they're buying into culture when they're doing that. When you're using a piece of generative AI, there's not really any thread that ties that piece of music to a cultural moment, whether it's something that's iconic or something that's upcoming. And then I think after that, the education process goes to kind of what like Emma was saying, like demystifying the process. And for us, it's removing friction from the process and making things easier. So kind of what I was saying before, our strategy at Sony is to, we're redesigning all of our systems internally so that our sync team members are able to focus more on relationship building and servicing buyers of music and our customer base and our writers, and really kind of like taking them on that journey to really believe in like buying into culture and buying into music by real artists that are really out there doing this and promoting creativity. And it's really it's copacetic within the creative world. Like if you're working on a creative piece of film or an advertisement, I think at some level as a creative, you want to have like human contact and touch in all pieces of that. So once that education process is done, I think on the rights holder side, it's just up to us to make the process as frictionless as possible.
What do you think about the latest tools in terms of discoverability, using AI just to, for instance, apply similarity search? Are you implementing these kind of tools internally just to be able to assist your creative searches, or eventually open up that experience in the future to clients so they can browse your catalogs when they might have a higher profile song that they cannot afford, to be able to quickly identify a lower, less known piece of music that still has his own, cultural relevance, but that is in the same space sonically. Are you guys using some of the latest technologies? Not to replace human, of course, but to assist our work and make it, as we were saying, more efficient?
Yeah, with the development team at Beggars have worked on, I guess, kind of AI technology that uses some of the metrics from Spotify to help us search the catalogue. We use Disco, obviously, for playlisting stuff, and that's been probably for the last 4 or 5 years. And it was much more manual before then.
It was.
Yeah, just iTunes and memory to put pictures together. So we've definitely moved on, but there's still a lot further we could go with it.
Did you use the comment section to put some notes on iTunes?
No, far too advanced.
Yeah, we are also using Disco. This became our main tool within the last years, but I feel that you need to do manual work as well on top of that when it comes to searches, or also auto tagging, but otherwise it doesn't work to do everything else.
Just rely on the machine.
Yeah, I mean, it's a mix of institutional knowledge and technology supporting that. I think no matter how large, I mean, if you have a catalog that's more than 200 songs, like the human brain is just not capable of keeping everything in check. So you need a little bit of help, and the AI searchability tools are so powerful and helpful in doing that. And it's really kind of making sure that you leave no stone left unturned when you're doing a search, and really going like deep in for the customer.
And just to finish on this better, do you think we need new strategies also in terms of pricing? I mean, manual sync, as you were describing, used to be quite concentrated on a few, like 300 TVC campaigns, 1 year old media. Today we have a much more granular market with, different advertisers. Same client might have different needs, ranging from one classic campaign, which is quite ambitious, to several hundreds of smaller bits, very granular. I mean, how can we tackle that in terms of providing them relevant repertoire for all those typologies within commercial music? The pricing topic being a bit at the center also of the sync ecosystem for forever. So you don't want to devaluate the bigger songs, but you want to still, promote as much of your catalog. I mean, as supervisors, we like, of course, placing recognizable, iconic tracks when we have the budget, but sometimes our clients request us smaller, they do have smaller budgets for certain needs, and we need to find exciting, culturally relevant also options for those tiers. So do you think these new approaches coming up, or how can we, rethink or, refine the pricing, which is today entirely manual? I mean, and each right holder applies their own criteria somehow. So any insights or any work in progress on
Yeah, I
side?
don't think because it's a difficult thing to try and put prices or sort of ballparks for certain rates, because if you do it on a track's popularity in terms of, I don't know, social media following or Spotify plays, like that's one marker. But then there are always exceptions. That we have songs in our catalogue that I would consider our sync hits and would charge a much higher fee for, but they probably don't have, hardly sold any records. So yeah, it's a hard thing to do because of those exceptions. So yes, I'm open to ideas on it though.
Yeah, I mean, I think as we continue to move through time, any IP that is culturally relevant and has cultural significance will continue to appreciate in value. And, I think that there's a lot of flexibility in maybe like, kind of deep album cuts, catalog gems, stuff that have never been used, up and coming artists. I think that there's places where there's like a softer price point and a greater degree of like elasticity and in where a ballpark lands or where a ballpark starts and where the fee starts. But I think at the end of the day, like the iconic, like very like culturally centered pieces of music, I think those are going to appreciate much more. And like the middle area will maybe erode a little bit, and like the lower tier will become, like it'll be like a big upper tier, big lower tier. Sorry about that. And then like a little, like a smaller, kind of like an hourglass, I think, is kind of what it's going to look like.
Yeah, on both sides. I also saw in the last years we got more requests for documentaries, and sometimes the budgets are really low. And we also have a couple of bigger artists, and I think if it's the right project where the music really fits, I mean, we have the chance to work with artists who are more flexible as well. So it definitely helps.
Yeah, I think, granularity on pricing, needs to adapt to the granularity also and the complexity of today's market. The needs are very, very different. The motivations also to place a piece of music on an exciting documentary. The money can, of course, be considered as one of the factors, but there is also maybe the fit for that particular writer or artist to be part of that soundtrack. So, this is also the most challenging part of commercial, I think, sync, that, at the end of the day, we are talking about a repertoire, and behind that repertoire, you have real artists with a very strong and unique personality. So it's how can we semi-automate or escalate this without losing the essence of actually respecting that, unique and particular aspect of each one of those writers or artists. So I think this is one of the challenges. And the competitors in this space, like AI, generative, and stock, are seizing that difficulty, which is I think essential to the nature of commercial music and the way it is written and produced and recorded. Let's move to another one, which is maybe a little bit easier to solve, which is faster. I think maybe you guys have some ideas on how we could provide a faster service in the commercial music licensing space. Of course, there is. I don't know. Maybe in the room there is people that are not fully familiar with the steps of a classic sync, but it starts with a client, a music buyer, supervisor, agency, etc., reaching out to, let's say, a song that is controlled by Emma and by Beggars and Sony 100% to each one of the parties, addressing a request with a scope of use and eventually doing an initial offer. Then each party will reply. We move into what we call the negotiation phase, and once everybody agreed on a figure, each party publisher and master owner go to the artist with a consolidated offer. That artist, of course, has the right to accept it, decline it, or eventually ask for some questions or additional information before making a decision. Once we have an approval, we move what we call execution, which is basically two phases. The first one being strictly legal, so there is a draft of a license being issued. The client and the supervisor will review that license and then ping it back to the right holder. And that's the redlining stage. And then once we agreed, we fully execute the license, so that's signing it. And then it's at the same time, more or less, it gets invoiced. And then the client or the supervisor pays for those rights. And then ideally, if it's a good professional, shares with the right holder the final piece of ad or scene of the film, so they have the actual usage of the copyright for the archives and of course for the artist. So that's a quite lengthy process. How could we be? I mean, how can we faster? I mean, knowing that copyright is a quite complex beast. I mean, we will not change that. Any insights, at least for that phase? I mean, the conversation and the negotiation might remain mainly human and manual, but once we agreed, can we find ways? Are you investigating ways to just accelerate that?
Yeah, I mean, even on like thinking about like going out for approvals on stuff, right? Like, yeah, in an ideal world, maybe it's the 1 or 2 writers on a track, and you're sending like 2 emails or something like that. Generally speaking, it tends to be more between like 7 to 13 plus, especially moving into some genres of music, and then you're getting into sampling and hip hop, and there's like it can be very inflated. So we're kind of changing our workflow to cut down on just the amount of like emails that we're sending, and trying to automate that process for our own like employee base, so that we can work a lot faster. I think in terms of the search, like using the AI tools to try and like help like kind of search the catalog. If you can cut down like a search time from 2 hours to 30 minutes even, I mean, you're saving a ton of time just to like work a little bit more efficiently. So I think it's we're changing like our internal systems and leveraging technology in order to work as quickly as we can as sync people. So that's kind of from our end.
Yeah, for us on the label side, we don't have to ask so many writers for the approval. We usually just have one. But when it comes to paperwork, it's a long process, manual process. As you said, if we could have a tool where we could centralize everything, at least for smaller artists or hidden gems, maybe even a couple of bigger artists, would be very helpful. So we could centralize it. And maybe also communicating with the music supervisors. Yeah.
Yeah, I think with sort of the approval process for us is pretty streamlined, because we just go directly to the artist and manager. So there's no label approval process. Beggars also has a publishing company where we share sort of a significant amount of catalogue. So that makes it, we managed to streamline that stuff, because then we're in the same building and we're emailing the same manager, so we just cut that down. And then once it gets to the licensing and invoicing side, the invoicing side has been automated a bit. But yeah, the licensing side is still pretty manual, and the redlining and all of that stuff. I would love to work out a way to cut that out of my life.
Yeah, and I think maybe also to have shorter agreements sometimes. I mean, sometimes you have a very long agreement that you need to review, and maybe to work on a shorter version would be helpful.
I mean, from the buyer's perspective, this is interesting, because we as a music supervision company our clients started delegating entirely on us more and more because of these pain points, because they are producing more content, because they don't want to put more charge into the legal and procurement teams, because of course, I mean, you know, a song that might have 3, 4 right holders, if they were not in the vendor's profile database, they need to create a vendor profile. And then they need that, you know, legal person to review 4 contracts. So basically, most of our clients, even for big deals, go like, hey, you know what, invoice us the rights with your services, and you do everything. You give us a one-stop, a fake one-stop. What we want is your expertise, so you help us navigating and sourcing an exciting track, or if you a soundtrack for if it's a film or a TV series, and we don't want to see any of those invoices. The contracts, please, before signing them, send them for final review. Final review, when you already agreed with the right holder and it reflects the scope to our legal team. And then you send us a PDF with a legal package. So we do one PO for you, and you distribute that money with all the stakeholders and handle everything. So I think the one-stop experience is something that, you know, if we want to make things faster for the client, is something that in the future, in some capacity, will start popping up. One-stops within big companies' own shops or sync DSPs, because they will have a segment from those 4 million songs that they control one-stop. They might decide to open their own breaker sync shop to offer to all the clients that experience. Companies like Beggars. In the K7 case, you don't have maybe that amount of one-stops, but maybe lots of artists that are self-published that you could represent for Sync. So I think if we want to really go faster, of course, automatization of contracts, but the one-stop experience, at least on the client side, is something I'm seeing like a big, big demand. And also, do you think, and this is more a question, that we need to still signing every single typology of license? Or should we, as an industry, cap it? So any deal below $10,000 just might need an usage or, a one-sheet like quick license as an authorization, only signed by the right holder saying, you license these rights. Do you think that as also maybe an option, just also to accelerate even more on the lower tier of deals?
Possibly, but I think it would be easier for the rights holder side to agree to do that. It'd be whether the clients would be interested, because they, especially on advertising, or if it's brand related, a lot of clients want guarantees that you own 100% of the recording, all of this stuff. Like I don't know whether they would agree to a simple license.
I think it would maybe more work for video content, for social media and stuff like that, rather than bigger commercials, TV and film. I would love it, to be honest.
We have standard boilerplate language, really. Like our first page will change, but on our side, I don't know if that would speed things up or not. And
the laws
are
negotiate
also
right there and then you can change them.
Yeah, and like laws vary by locality and whatnot, but I think like at some sort, like automation on the administrative side, which we're in the process of doing. I think a lot of people are in the process of doing, is really going to help the overall industry and with speed. I would imagine in the next 6 months to a year, you would really start seeing the effects of that.
And let's finish with Stronger. We know how the dystopian future looks like, so there will be only things and we will be only watching movies with AI unlicensed music, and also plenty of stock music like leaf music and not relevant music, except for the few like really high profile songs. So let's go the other way around. If we want a stronger ecosystem for the next decade, with artist-driven music, with relevant, exciting music. How do you imagine that? What would be the reason why I'm putting this as a closing topic is I have the feeling that we are really at a turning point. I have this conversation today with James, I mean, and speaking with other supervisors, colleagues, brands. I mean, it feels a bit like the shift, from the CD era and when Napster erupted, and then that was like a little bit. It was a bit like a jungle, and of course then that led to a more structured business model, which is legal streaming platforms. So it feels today that there's lots of things on the table. So we have our manual sync, keep on servicing high profiles, copyrights. Those are in demand and well paid. Struggling a bit with the long tail, but doing more volume, more work for less profit, but still fighting for that segment. Opportunistic companies making lots of money with stock music, royalty music, that doesn't re-inject any income into the creative ecosystem. And then now generative AI. So, how can we imagine a moment for sync, or a positive future for sync, without having the 10 years of a drama that we had after Napster?
I think we should embrace a little bit AI as well and not completely be against it. I mean, we have a lot of vintage catalog as well, so it's very helpful to getting stamps and instrumentals which are needed for sync. And I can't imagine that's gonna replace the proper recorded music in the future. I mean, like I said before, it doesn't have the same creativity and emotion as real music, but it's hard to tell.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think especially looking at the branded and advertising space over the past 4 to 5 years, it's become so talent driven, like at its base. It's so many more opportunities are transcending just syncing a song to picture. There's an artist integration, and they want other talent aspects to things. And I don't think that's going to slow down at all, especially just as the creator community thrives as well, and seeing artists and musicians as creators, and starting their own brands and doing various things in the space. I think that's going to really thrive. And outside that, I would just hope that there's excitement and the appetite to make kind of unconventional choices and use edgier music, use stuff think a little bit outside the box, and really have some support for up and coming artists and up and coming creators, and kind of try and usher in people having those moments early on in their career. So I think there's a lot of work to be done on rights holders' ends with buyers of music now and in the future to foster that collaboration and that passion. And I think really leaning into just the idea of being connected to culture as a brand or as a filmmaker or what have you, I think is very important. And I don't see us as humans and as people that enjoy and consume culture, people who are immersed in creativity. I mean, we're all here because of music, in this room, at this festival, and I don't see that really going anywhere. And I kind of see our job as really kind of helping to steward that that mindset and that want into the future.
Yeah, I agree with James. I guess the optimism that people will still turn to and rely on real music, but then also, I think that side of the business will continue to exist. But then it's looking at how technology can help with the long tail and solving that problem, and having that as hopefully additional income to what we're already doing. Yeah, and I think that's the kind of stuff that we have to address.
I mean, there is there is a few ongoing initiatives. I mean, the biggest one being SongTrader, which you might have heard about. I mean, it's a company that raised, I don't know, I think 200 million plus, and that actually also started aggressively acquiring music buyers. So they acquired Massive Music, they acquired Big Sync. So they acquired the mainstream of music supervision. Those companies provide services to Unilever, Coca-Cola, so it's basically the big tanks. What do you think of SongTrader? There are other initiatives also in the tech space. There is a new platform called Caudal. There is another one called Booper, which is like in the indie, like distro. It's a US initiative, quite small, has been around for a few years. And as you might know, Jiang is launching also an initiative by the end of the year, which is not intended to solve the global problem, but just also offer a curated and long-tail solution for a specific segment of the market, which is quality branded content and independent cinema and film as a core. Have you experienced some of those platforms? I mean, have you been in conversations? I mean, what are the takeaways, I mean, from a right holder's perspective of, those initiatives?
Yeah, we've been approached by quite a few of those. And generally, we've just found that the business models hasn't really worked for us. But as I'm sure you'll become aware of, beggars, we are going to work with Catalogue because it just made more sense for the type of artists that we work with and the work that we're already doing. Like I say, that we're hoping that that's going to add to the sync that we're working on. Some of the other platforms that have come in that basically want you to put the entire catalogue and set rate cards and have everything pre-approved just doesn't work with indie artists.
Yeah, same for us. We also got approached by one of these platforms, and everything needs to be pre-cleared, and this is something it doesn't work with our repertoire. We also need to ask the artists. We want the artists to have their creative approval on everything, and I think a tool like Catalogue, where it's very well curated, it's automatical and stuff like that. I think it could just be super helpful for us. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's I think consent is like the big issue with us as well. It's I don't think there's any artist that we represent that would want us to just greenlight any use of their repertoire across any brand or any project. So it's difficult in that nature. But like the catalog program is like very well curated, consent aspects to it. So it's a lot more ethical, ethically speaking, I would say, I guess, than others out there.
I think, I mean, because we can close with this, I mean, do you believe that, the same way, we started with the cacophony, I mean, in the birth of streaming or digital distribution, there was a bit of cacophony. Of course, there was these illegal platforms, but they still invented a technology that was peer-to-peer that then was used by Spotify to create a legal system with quite a lot of pushback at the beginning from right holders, from big right holders, because it was quite disruptive in terms of, they came from the physical world and moving to, a subscription model where, these music fans will have access to the entire catalog for a flat rate. Do you think that we will see in the next years like proper seeing DSPs arising, like as a mainstream, like different, like Apple Music, Spotify, Deezer, and some in Asia? Do you think that there will be many different of these initiatives like arising and eventually getting their vision and positioning towards a market that might also go to some of them for some type of music or solutions? And how do you see that happening in commercial music? Because that's already the fact with stock. So nowadays you have some, I would say, 10 leading companies One of them is owned by Sony Publishing, which is Extreme, that merged with KPM. Then you have all the majors also owning the production, the major publishers, the production side. So BMG has one, Universal has one, Warner Chappell has one, and those are like basically browsable click and license experiences. Do you think, I mean, in the next decade, in this bright future, we will be able to tackle all these difficulties and come up with a few alternatives, or how do you envision that?
Yeah, I think that's the goal, right? I think it's having a platform open publicly that you could just kind of log into and do your thing as a creative and get some clarity on availability, price, etc. I think at some point that will probably be a thing. I'm not sure if you would be using that for like massive global advertising campaigns, but for when you're in the weeds and you're putting out like 20 to 50 like pieces of digital content like per week, and if you do have the desire to use like actual commercial music, I think that's inevitable.
Yeah, I can see that for all the smaller uses. I think the existing business will. I don't know if it will change that much in the next decade, but yeah, definitely for the volume of the smaller stuff, then yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, for smaller users, yeah.
We all agree, I think. We all want that to happen. Also, maybe the audience has some questions on any specific topic. Yes.
Hi, Hannes Schürz from European Sync. You paint a very bright picture of colorful, great future that we all face. We hear quite the opposite, though, especially in smaller markets. Within Europe, it's quite dark. On the one hand, you mentioned that between the lines a bit. So many things, but they get ever smaller. So actually, getting the work done is necessary. The work increases while the money gets lower and lower. That's one issue. And still, we face a lot of problems. We are an organization that tries to bring together the audiovisual industries, meaning the music and the film and the advertising industry, and hold workshops and academies and all that. What we're facing the most, particularly in smaller countries like Spain or France, so given the countries of any other country pretty much in Europe, still there's not the type of understanding. I would wish for a scenario that you painted. Your company is asked to do it one stop, and you are the qualified people that actually manage to do all this stuff. But many people don't appreciate that type of role. They hardly know about the role. They hardly know about the rights, so we're still facing the same problems that we faced 10, 15, 20, 25 years ago even. Very much so, even though in an increasing number of cases with all the smaller productions from all the streaming services and all that. So I appreciate you painting a bright future, but I have to disagree to a certain point.
Well, I mean, I'm not saying the future will be. I don't think we are saying that the future will be necessarily as bright as we just described it. I think we just described it the future that we want to build. And of course, it's a challenge, and of course, it's a conversation that we're having here today. Of course, I mean, the market right now, as we said initially, is in a moment where it's a little bit under pressure. I mean, I agree with you. I think we all agree. The lower tier is getting lower fees. The competition is quite aggressive. I mean, you have all these companies in the stock music presenting themselves also as record labels or music agencies. I mean, just go to the websites. They upgraded a lot the image, creating also this misleading perception that they work with artists, and they don't. They just play flat fees to composers, and they retain all rights, and that doesn't come back into the creative industries. You know, that's it. When you license that music, you accept that. The thing is that indeed we need to do a little bit of education so clients can understand the choices they are making, financially, artistically, and culturally. But to make those choices, also we need to tackle the problems we have with commercial music. You cannot go to a client and say, hey, instead of paying 500 euros for, for a stock track, we have, plenty of options at 2K, and you can afford that, and that are ethically artist-driven, going back into the creative industries ecosystem. But we need to offer them a better experience, because maybe many times, we are confronted with that. They don't have the time to execute those contracts and source the music, because the problem is also discoverability. An artist that would be happy, a back catalog track with Netflix, Spanish production, background usage at 1.5K a side. There's plenty of artists that would be very happy with that fee. It's not like pocket money, like 100 euros. It's a decent amount of money. For certain typologies of songs. So I think my take is, we are at a turning point. It's challenging. There is too much, in my opinion, in my personal opinion, stock music in our audiovisual culture now, and we need to face it. And we are finding and working and all thinking of solutions. And yeah.
Like you said, for Netflix, I think it's right. Also, if the buyer see that as a label or the artist is willing to license the music for such a fee, the buyer might come back to you and license even more tracks. So can generate definitely more revenue for the company and also more awareness for the artist.
Yeah, I think that we're in the most competitive state of the music industry that we've ever been in. I don't think it's going to get less competitive. I think it's just going to get more competitive. I think we have a lot of idealized thoughts, but I think that we have to strive for some sort of solution and make things a little bit easier. I don't think that we're not going to be working less hard having like the aid of like AI searchability tools in our searches, or having like admin automated. If anything, it's really like what that is really going to do for us working in the industry is like allocate our time a little bit better and being more strategic about how we use our time, whether it's like fostering relationships with buyers of music, with ad agencies, with film production studios, whether it's sitting with our writers and our producers and our artists and helping them strategize on how to like take their music sonically into like a world that works a little bit better in the space, whether it's in the sync space or whether it's in the commercial music space. From my viewpoint, like I think that's really like the most important part of all this for where I sit in the industry. And it's about, I don't know, it's about it. You just gotta do the best you gotta do.
It's really, it's really. I do agree. It's one of the most competitive, challenging moments of the music industry. There is lots going on. The way, at least at Too Young and what we're building with Catalog, our approach is very clear. What we are doing is, anticipating somehow the super fan of sync. So we are building a small ecosystem for people that already value and understand music, which are the core of our clients, and expand it to the top tier of the market. That's the market that we know. That's the market that we, service on every basis, understanding the pain points, because we know that they appreciate music, and we want to help them to continue investing, and we don't need to convince them. The company that wants to use generative because it's cheaper and faster, I do understand there is a problem. It's not something I'm tackling. I think that's a lost war. The company or the cheap director that wants to, or the production company in advertisement that wants to make a margin, like grossing up an invoice and goes to stock or buys a subscription at Artlist, well, I think it's not either my war. But I do think that we need to, put it on, in the agenda, in the public debate, a conversation where things are clear. So if you do that choice, you need to be accountable for that choice. It comes at a price. If you're using Artlist, that's not the same as using commercial music and supporting a creative industry. If that's said and understood, but that's the message we need to convey together. And the buyers will make their choices, assuming the consequences. When you buy a T-shirt from H&M made by kids in Malaysia, well, you know, I mean, that's a choice.
Okay, I think we are running out of time. We have to stop it here. Yeah, do we have time for the last question? One? Yeah? Okay.
You late?
Yeah.
Sorry. Hi, I'm Katrina from Disco. Thank you guys for the little shout out. Totally agree, obviously, complete oversaturation of the market. So I'm curious from your perspective, like, how do people stand out? Like, how do we, from a rights holder, stand out, tell the stories of our artists, get people to pay attention if they're getting 1,000 pitches a day? And then also on a part two question on what you were talking about, Frederick, educating your clients on like the importance of commercial music versus production. Like, how do you do that? What are those conversations like?
Very difficult. And mainly when you announce them that the commercial choice is 5K and the production is 500. So then you need to put on the table why that's 5K. Those 60 seconds of music is 5K. And we have at the company many good reasons. And I think I joined the entire panel. I mean, the first main reason is that that piece of music has been created by an artist. And that artist, even if niche, has an audience and sits in a scene and addresses his music and message to a community and has a following audience to start with. And then we can go into technical aspects about the difference in the sound and the actual craft of a song made by an artist and production. But it's a difficult debate. So that's why we need to put that on the table fast. And so they understand the global picture because that's a choice. I mean, those are intrinsic to music, but also there's a global picture. As a brand, you have some certain social responsibility. And as a production studio and a filmmaker as well. I mean, you know, you are in a cultural industry. So it's like, you know, nowadays all the corporations are green. So what's green in the sync space? Well, green in the sync space is using artist-driven music.
Yeah, in terms from rights holder point of view, like trying to stand out. I don't know. We've always tried to nurture relationships with music supervisors, and try and get them to go to shows because I think that's one big way of getting people to buy into the artist. Definitely seeing them live. But even that in itself is a competitive space, especially in London. There are however many labels and publishers and a limited amount of music supervisors, and you're all trying to get them to go to something every night of the week. But yeah, it's just kind of, you're just trying to do your best really for the artist.
Yeah. And to have the personal relationship also with the music supervisors where you present new artists, and to keep having the dialogue with them.
Yeah. I think it's also like about kind of studying what brands are, or who are your customer base, like what kind of music, you know, they're using, and not putting artists that, you know, wouldn't really work with what the buyer is doing in front of them, you know, and you know, I think just being just responsive, quick, candid, and helpful, you know, like we're all trying to do this one thing. You know, so I think if you just keep things like personable, and I think that goes a really, really long way.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we're going to stop here. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.